If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back with another episode, Chasing Down a Money Trail. I'm John Wheaton, and with me, as always, is S2. Tonight, we're discussing the arrival of Palestinian refugees in the United States, social media clips that surfaced around it, and the claim that an organization called Heal Palestine is involved, led by Steve Sosebee. You will learn a lot about this guy tonight. This guy previously was involved in some of the organizations we talked about in our last episode on Sunday night, but we are talking about the broader impact of NGO networks. We all remember the USAID debacle that happened earlier this year, but we're talking more broadly about how these organizations die, rebrand, and reemerge, and just continue this cycle of funneling money to terrorist organizations. S2, how are you tonight?
Chilling, sitting here listening to ham radio tonight, picking up radio stations all the way down to Texas.
Yep. That's cool. And I apologize, I did not have time to get a conflicted question together for you, but I am going to ask a question to our audience. How deep do you think that this wormhole goes, and who, in your mind, is behind all of this when it comes to how this money is being funneled to terrorists? So, what is your opinion on how deep this goes, who is connected to it, and what the end game is? We'll talk about that later on in the show. Before we get started, join the crusade by signing up for a free Substack account. It is one of the best ways that you guys can get connected to Survival Dispatch if you're new. If you've been around for a while, I hope you've already done that, because it does give you that Saturday watch guide, which is a list of everything that we put out throughout the week. We put out a ton of content on all of our platforms, Substack, YouTube, Rumble. We're everywhere, like Santa Claus and Ray Stevens. He's everywhere. But we are ready to bring that to you. If you sign up for that free Substack account, you will get all of that information, thumbnails, links, and descriptions, and it gives you the best method to fight against big tech censorship is to directly connect with us, because their biggest way of suppressing is to not let you know when our content is out. Also, a side note, if you guys are interested in preparedness and protein supplementation, Carnivalt is the place to go. If you use the code EATMEAT, you get 10% off, and this stuff is amazing. It is freeze-dried, shelf-stable, raw meat that you can cook. After you reconstitute it, you can cook it like regular meat you buy at the store. It's quite amazing, and I highly recommend it. Everything that I have had from them is incredible, top-notch, high quality. So check them out and use EATMEAT for 10% off. All right. Yes. And I see we've got Jihadi Elmo in the on the cover photo of the day.
That's
so
Ahmed Elmo to you.
Ahmed Elmo. Very good. All right. Let's get into this topic. As I said earlier, we had Palestinian refugees arriving in the United States and a lot of buzz around that. But we're going to focus in on an organization, and starting out with an organization called Heal Palestine and some other organizations that you're going to come to know very well, which is led by Steve Sosebee. And the same individual that previously partnered with now dismantled Holy Land Foundation. We talked about them in the last episode. If you guys want a little bit more information about that, you can check out our Sunday episode, which is on all of our platforms as well. U.S.-based charity founded by the Muslim Brotherhood. And remember, they are kind of the pipeline, the body that connects all of these tentacles together. And shut down after being convicted of funneling millions of dollars to Hamas. Heal Palestine is another NGO sending money to Hamas and facilitating the invasion of America with people who hate us. Okay, so our first order of business, we're going to do another. I actually teased this thread at the end of last episode. So we're going to jump into this thread from Data Republican. If you're not following Data Republican, you need to be. Some top-notch intel work on this. So let me get this up real quick. All right, we're going to start with this first thread, and S2 has done a lot of gathering of information. So we're going to kind of be back and forth on this and seeing where we're, what we have together. So anyways, on to the thread. The president of the Islamic Relief USA, one of the largest Muslim charities in the U.S., is serving as an advisor, advisory bodies to both USAID and the State Department. The same org's parent, Islamic Relief Worldwide, has been banned by Israel and allegedly for alleged Hamas links, listed by the UAE as a terrorist group, and barred from funding by Germany, the Netherlands, and over Muslim Brotherhood ties. And yet, still working with UN and USAID as in fundraising efforts. Who is this man? His name is Anwar Khan. After 30 years ahead of the Islamic Relief USA, he recently stepped down. He now works for another Muslim charity. I am tying all of my words together tonight. I apologize. The American Muslim Community Foundation, AMCF, which has donated to PCRF, a group whose founder, Steve Sosebee, was exposed yesterday by Laura Loomer for trafficking Palestinian children to the United States. And then this thread has actually been being built over days, by the way. This started on August 16th, and I think some of the posts are from just a couple of days ago. So this is some information screenshots. This is the guy that that we were talking about, but also Steve Sosebee. Let me pull this up as well.
I'm pretty sure that Anwar Khan was also part of the Muslim Brotherhood. At
Correct.
Some point in time.
He was actually mentioned in our last episode. He was one of the guys.
He was one of the. I think he was the president actually.
Yep. So yeah, I think you're right. Get the right thread up here. But okay, so the formal network relationship, Islamic Relief, is a federation. IRW is a parent body, and members organizations include Islamic Relief USA that we just mentioned, operate under a members agreement and license from IRW. IRUSA, Islamic Relief USA, is a voting member. The IRW's audit of 2021 reports show IRUSA provided $54 million, about 30% of IRW's total income, financial notes show, related to the balance dues. So they have a very, very large income from the United States. So S2, yes. What risk exists when a U.S. charity is structurally tied to a foreign parent via members agreements? Let's talk about this IRUSA, IRW, and its ties to the Islamic Muslim Brotherhood and other entities.
Well, you have a national security risk because you have an American-based or entity that is providing funding to nation-state terrorist organizations that are looking to do the U.S. harm. That's pretty much a no-brainer.
Yep.
And that's the biggest risk we look at there.
Yep. So United Nations Development Program, Islamic Relief. This is charitable income by institution. Top institutions here. You see United Nations, OCHF, Islamic Relief Netherlands, Islamic Relief Belgium. That seems to be a lot of European countries who is being overrun with Islamic growth. And here you go. In millions of dollars, donations, disclosures by member. Islamic Relief USA, protecting life and dignity. Here is the total, and this is obviously in different formats here, but $54 million, or no, I'm sorry, that's not, that's
Those are euros.
Yeah, euros, sorry. It's not 54 million. This is, let me remind myself. I'm sorry, I did not. Oh, these are the members. This is the members who disclosed their membership and charities and revenue. So as you can see, Islamic Relief USA is at the top of this pile. So
there's something important about that you're going to ask me a question about, I'm sure.
Yeah. So how should or what thresholds should trigger enhanced scrutiny of any charity funneling money through funneling a third of a parent's income, a parent company or parent organization's income? What shouldn't there be some sort of trigger for review of those charitable donations? Shouldn't that send off some red flags?
There is a trigger for that. There is a dollar amount. It's important to understand how these organizations work. Number one, they use psychological manipulation as a tool to hide their subversive funding activities. They use NGOs formed under the guise of humanitarian aid or relating to children welfare. They use social programs as cover. They're able to evade detection and scrutiny. They evade scrutiny using the political correctness card. And after all, who would be against a social program for the good of children, right? Or
Correct.
providing food and medical assistance to a populace? Nobody should be against that, right? Okay, well, if we move on down to a financial perspective, NGOs, these are usually 501c3s. These particular types of NGOs, they evade detection by reporting their revenue under $50,000. That is the trigger. And in so doing, they only have to report it. They're required to file what's called a Form 990N, as in Nicholas. The Form 990N is electronically filed and there is no paper copy. And basically what that means is that if somebody was on the inside, that copy could be altered. And these NGOs are formed and dissolved like changing underwear. I mean, it's being that when most of the NGOs are created and dissolved, their financials are often overlooked because their revenue is so low, and there's no length of time that indicates any pattern of behavior, which makes them harder to detect.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm going through, this is like their online.
But your trigger number is $50,000. If you keep it at 50,000 and below, you can fly under the radar all day long. And we're seeing a lot of this happening. Even, we're hearing a lot about this Indian trucker that killed 3 people. Made an illegal U-turn in Florida, killed 3 people. Well, they're operating very much in the same way. These trucking companies set up LLCs all over the country, and when they get their asses in hot water, they dissolve the company, and then they turn around and it pops up again under a different name. Because LLCs are so easy to set up by anyone.
Yep.
And you don't.
I have 3 LLCs myself.
Well, and here's the kicker: is you don't necessarily have to disclose who the company officers are. You can keep those under wraps, or you can hire an agent to do all of that for you, and that's just another layer of corporate veil that you would have to pierce somehow.
Yeah. So, but like I would. It's insane to me because you guys remember a few years ago that they were trying to pass laws that would set aside if you spent $600 or more on a credit card or on your bank card that would trigger an automatic review by our government on U.S. citizens. But yet we can't even get a review on foreign donations to foreign entities that are tied, and this is like we don't have the power and the research and resources of the federal government. We can find this stuff. They can find it too, but they just refuse to. Why is that? Why? How can Congress require clearer disclosures without burdening a smaller local like ministry or something?
Well, that's an easy question to answer. Some of our politicians have very large donors that support these organizations, and they choose to look the other way. And again, going back to the situation I was talking about from the FinCEN standpoint, they pop up, they like helicopters over a radar, under radar, and then they pop down back below radar again so fast that there's no way for you to really get a good pattern of behavior of any of these organizations and where their money's coming from, because the money just changes hands.
Amazing. And that's how they just continue to run this paper chase in a lot of ways. So moving on to the next one.
Go
ahead.
It gets a little more complex than that too. They've become a little more sophisticated in how they're receiving their donations and how they're transmitting those donations. They've actually started using crypto now. So if they're using privacy-based crypto like Monero, impossible to track. Impossible.
Yeah, so that's a rabbit hole we could go down. Let's actually do that for a couple of minutes. Like, yeah, for those of you that don't understand how these cryptocurrencies work and blockchain and all this other stuff, the reason the government was moving so heavily to regulate it was because it is in its current form. Most of them are almost untraceable. There is a certain level of traceability between peer to peer, but it's harder to run down than just your average, debit card or cash transfers.
Well,
talk about
really.
that a little bit more.
Not really. There's what's called the public ledger out there, and all transactions across the blockchain are public, except for the privacy-based coins. Even those transactions are somewhat public out there, but they're hidden behind encryption, so you can't really see where they're going from one place to another. But in the case of the public wallet, most of the cryptos out there, your transactions are wallet-to-wallet based, so your wallet has a number that's assigned to it. That never changes. And the only time that would ever change is if you go establish another account. But even then, if you take that money out of your other crypto account and you put it into that one, that's still traceable from wallet to wallet.
But I guess what I was saying is that the only identification is that number that you're given when it comes to transaction.
True.
So it's kind of like with banks. With banks are like that.
But the blockchain is traceable is the point.
Sure. So, you can see this money running around and you may not know until you find out who is behind that unique ID. And then you can basically figure out where all that money's going. But it's still rather harder to understand or to see all of the details. And the way they know how to launder money through this stuff is probably pretty sophisticated.
Oh, I promise you, the FBI's FinCEN division, I promise you, they have all of the wallet numbers of all of the heavy players out there. I promise you they do.
So if they do, why are they not moving on these people? I mean, I understand if they're trying to catch a bigger fish, you don't move on the small fish, but goodness, like that's a lot of money moving out of our country into the hands of terrorists.
Well, you have to look at it from the legal standpoint too, is that it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And in this case, you have to be able to prove, okay, let's say Palestinian Relief Organization sends money to Ahmed Elmo over in Saudi Arabia. Okay, Ahmed Elmo is an individual. Ahmed Elmo can take delivery of that crypto, but that's not. But they don't know who Ahmed Elmo is. Ahmed Elmo can, from there, from a single point, distribute out to multiple points, and that's in a foreign country, which is protected by their laws, which may or may not violate their privacy laws and things like that. The UK has one of the most stringent digital privacy laws out there that there is. And when you start looking at it from that standpoint as being a very complicated network of, you've got one individual, and they have a name for that guy. I forget what it is. I think it's like Nawal or something like that. Is what they call them. They're basically money laundering mules. But when you start looking at it from that standpoint and that complexity, and you're crossing over international boundaries, you have to be careful about the legalities that you get yourself into. Otherwise, you can't really build a case. You'll destroy your own case. So it's not what you know, it's what you can prove in a court of law. You would have to prove that Ahmed Elmo over in Saudi Arabia is enabling Hamas by sending Hamas and all of their terror network cells money to enable them to commit acts of terrorism. And that's even more difficult to prove, is the intent. Sorry, that was a little long-winded explanation.
No, you're totally fine, and that's like, this is going to be information heavy, and it's going to be very very detailed in that sense. So the next part of this is IRW was co-founded by Azam El Hadid, who is a senior advisor on foreign relations for the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. We talked about them. They rose to power and then were quickly taken out of power within 2 or 3 years in the last episode. Hani El Banna is another founder, which reported to be involved with the Muslim Brotherhood and who allegedly urged a strong coalition between NGOs and Hamas. So here we go with trying to use, like, I mean, we think about recent history and USAID and all of the connection to NGOs, all of the money that was flying out of the coffers of the US government into random, probably actually not random, but all of these different entities, and money flowing out for wasteful spending, earmark spending that politicians ask for when they're signing onto these big giant bills, all of that kind of stuff. Well, terrorist organizations are also trying to use NGOs because they realize that really NGOs can be a slush fund for whatever you want them to be. And so this is a very, very important point. And, you know, this is obviously Wikipedia, but the relations of Azam El Hadid, Freedom of Justice Party, and in August 2012, he was appointed one of 4 Egyptian presidential assistants. That was in the short reign of the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay. So now let's pull this up real quick. This is the guy that you saw on that first slide. This is
the politician
Anwar Ahmed Khan with Commissioner General, UNRWA, Commissioner General Pierre, and I cannot say Cronable, I think, met with IRU. Yes, with him. This is since 2012, Islamic Relief USA, IRUSA, has contributed nearly US $28 million towards vital programs for Palestinian refugees. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second. It is widely known that since Hamas took over in Gaza, there's not been a election since then, FYI, and that was in the early 2000s for over almost 20 years. I think actually a little over 20 years. There's not been an election in Gaza. It is widely known that any kind of aid that makes it into that country is quickly snatched up and distributed terrorists first. This is well known.
It's kind of like Khalid said last night on the podcast last night, where you have this little box outside of every mosque, and when you leave the mosque after prayer time or happy time, whatever you want to call it, you put your donation in there, and nobody knows where that money goes.
Yeah. Yep. And here we go. In 2020, the organization funded a fifth iteration of the project Intervention to Support Vulnerable Children in Gaza, which provided critical financial and in-kind assistance to extremely vulnerable orphans and children living with disabilities in the enclave.
That we're not really orphans.
Right. So let's talk about this for a minute. How should we as Americans weigh the humanitarian claims against what we see in reality before all of this smoke on everything that's going on in Gaza over the last couple of years? Before October 7th, Gaza was not this wonderful place, this paradise that's all of a sudden been destroyed. It was ruled by Hamas and has been. So how do we weigh that when they're claiming humanitarian, all this money's flowing in a humanitarian way, and people that are paying attention know better? How do we get people to understand this? But this is not something new. S2.
Is that a rhetorical question?
Well, yeah, I guess it is. So just let's talk about this for a minute. Give me your weigh in on this whole thing, with how they're funneling millions of dollars directly into Gaza.
We have the same problem with LLCs and NGOs and every other entity that's working against the United States and the American people, and that's a vetting problem. People parrot what they are told. They read something, they parrot it back. They don't do any research into it. They don't vet anything. And this information is out there. And you have to look at the actions of the organization versus the words that they put out on a fancy website or even what they say on a video. When you start I'm immediately, my radar immediately goes up when I see anything of an NGO that has the word children in it, or when they use buzzwords like vulnerable children. My hackles go immediately up, and I will go directly looking for them. And I generally am right. I find that there are very few legitimate ones out there. I mean, there's another thing out there that a lot of people say that UNICEF is a legit organization. Okay, well, they're run by the UN. What has the UN been known for doing? They have been involved in child trafficking, and UNICEF is part of that network. So I hate to say it, but guilt by association, regardless of what their outward appearances look like.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, and it's what it does is it destroys the trust that you can have in any other organization. And there are some small scale organizations that I have personally dealt with that do a lot of good work for children, at-risk children. The ones that are actually doing the work that matters are the ones that are going in and rescuing these children out of these horrible situations, not the ones that are just sending blind money that can be intercepted by terrorists or is meant to be intercepted by terrorists. Let's just call a spade when it comes to that. So in this thread, the next thing is now it is important to understand that Anwar Khan, which is the guy we just saw in that other picture, has been the co-founder and president of the Islamic Relief USA, ding, 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 for nearly the entire tenure from its founding in 1994 to last year. So this guy is running around collecting millions of dollars to help underprivileged children, at-risk children, whatever you want to call it. If you've ever dealt with DCFS, you know just how well governments do at protecting vulnerable children. Personal experience here. This is the guy that is doing all of this. This is the guy that has been the head of charitable donations that are somehow ending up in the hands of terrorists. So,
well, let's not forget about Mr. Sosebee either. I mean,
right.
He's in it he's in it neck deep.
So, yes, let's talk about Sosebee. Why don't you lay the groundwork for him, and I'm going to pull some stuff up.
So, Sosebee, let me get back to my notes here real quick. Let's see here. Sosebee actually started the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund back in 1991. He was a former journalist who was on assignment in Hebron and brought Palestinian children in need to Akron, Ohio to receive free medical care. He later met Huda al-Masri, a Palestinian social worker within the YMCA in Jerusalem. That's a weird thing going on right there. But Sosebee and Masri ended up getting married in 1993. The Palestinian Children's Relief Fund was involved in the Holy Land Foundation scandal back in 2004, where the Holy Land Foundation attempted to make a donation of $50,000 to the PCRF. And Sosebee said at the time the PCRF received the donation and the money would be used to fund its relief services. That same year, NBC televised a fictional film, Homeland Security, featuring a scene in which the PCRF is referred to as a terrorist organization and front for Islamic Jihad. And as a result, the investigation went into them, and they also were investigated by the British government as well. So that's kind of some of his goings on there, but he's been involved in a number of other charities as well. I believe there's an organization, what's it called here? It's called Union of Good. The Union of Good is also known as the Charity Coalition, and it's an umbrella organization that's based in Saudi Arabia that is allegedly comprised of over 50 Islamic charities, and it was founded in 2001. It was accused by the U.S. and Israeli governments of funneling money to Hamas-controlled organizations in the West Bank and Gaza. The U.S. Treasury designated that group as a terrorist entity in November of 2008 under Executive Order 13224, citing its role in transferring funds to Hamas, including support for families of suicide bombers and imprisoned Hamas members. There are numerous members, they all operate under these membership agreements. So you've got Interpal, which is Palestinian Relief and Development Fund. I think we just mentioned that. We have the Al Tadamun, Al Islah, Hebron's Islamic Charitable Society. Those are definitely three Hamas-affiliated organizations in the West Bank and Gaza. You have International Islamic Relief Organization based in Saudi Arabia. You have Holy Land Foundation, of course. And then you have others in foreign countries like France. And you have the Palestinian Association in Austria, which is the PVOE, and Senegal Association for Relief and Development. That's in Lebanon. And then you have Al-Aqsa Foundation. That's another big one. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of that. So all of these organizations internationally are inextricably linked, and the money that flows between them is something that the Muslims in the United States have been able to exploit by sending it through to other countries where their digital privacy laws are very strict. And I only know a lot about this because I happen to be in the financial industry, and we have to go through these things where we have to be able to detect money laundering. We go through all of this training every year. We have to be able to do that.
So here you go. Here's some of the things. Laura Loomer, that was referenced in the Data Republican. After I exposed him for his pro-Hamas sympathies and pretending like Gazans, the Gazans he has been importing into the U.S. Are in urgent need of medical care. Steve Sosebee, founder of Heal Palestine, has blocked me on X. Let's look at this. So this is some of the stuff that was posted. Founder of Heal Palestine, Steve Sosebee, promoted Palestinian poet who celebrated the murder of babies on October 7th. Now he is working with the State Department employees to ship Gazans to the U.S.
Children, specifically.
So how much of this is connected to human trafficking, like sex trafficking, in your mind? I mean, this is hypothetical.
Well,
I'm not, you know.
No, this is you have the dark economy of the cabals. Okay, there's not just one cabal. Okay, we have the
Right.
United States cabal. The Middle Easterns have their cabal, and their currency is drugs, money, and people.
Yep. So let's continue on with this, and then we're going to get back to our main thread. Today, Heal Palestine is a group I exposed for importing Gazans into the United States with visas from America Last pro-Islamic immigration employees at the U.S. State Department. Remember, just because Trump is trying to purge the swamp is deep and wide, and there's a lot of people in the State Department and all of these other organizations that are operating under the power that they have to do this kind of stuff. And you can get a lot done with it once you're inside of the government and you don't have proper oversight. Released a statement criticizing the decision by Marco Rubio to stop the visa program for Gazans following my viral expose that I personally gave to Senator Rubio. Or I should say Secretary Rubio now. So it actually says that. But anyways, Heal Palestine and their founder, Steve Sosebee, wants you to think that they're innocent people that are just trying to help kids who they claim need urgent medical care, even though the kids aren't attached to any medical equipment and managed to travel 22 hours on Qatar Airlines to the U.S. Meanwhile, Steve Sosebee uses his X account to talk about how he and the Gazan children, Heal Palestine, works with paid tribute to great poet Rafit Al-Arir. Al-Arir, that's funny. This same poet made a tweet days after the October 7th saying, with or without baking powder. When the Jewish ex-user named Ifun posted a tweet about October 7th, a baby that was found inside a kitchen oven baked by Hamas terrorists. What kind of a sick person would encourage kids to read poetry of a paid tribute to a Muslim man who asked if a baby was found in the oven was baked with or without baking powder? That is disgusting. I don't care who you are.
So this thread is interesting because when you ask the question about why aren't they doing anything about this if they know who these people are? Well, we've seen already with the Russiagate stuff where they've been able to expose a lot of the people behind the scenes that a lot of people hadn't even heard of. So this may be what they could be doing. Is why they're not doing anything about it immediately is because they're building a case against these people that are actually working in the State Department. You can't tell me that all of the people that were working at USAID didn't know what's going on. And I also find it interesting that we've had a lot of child trafficking cases that have been centered around Ohio in the last 2 decades. And I also find it funny that Steve Sosebee is shipping kids to various parts of Ohio, Akron and Toledo. There's one of these particular NGOs that's actually based in Toledo, Ohio, which is not very far from Akron. So and then you have to ask yourself the question, why is the governor DeWine of Ohio? He also was involved in covering up one of these child traffic scandals that were going on in Ohio as well, in the same area.
This is a lot of things are being tied together with this, and it's disgusting and revolting, and everybody needs to be aware of what's going on in our country. You know, I myself, and I know S2 is the same way. We both served our country. We're both patriots to, you know, what America is supposed to be, not what it is, because what it is has some really, really dark corners, and that needs to be cleaned up. And it starts with us. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Once you
go
see
ahead.
it, you can't. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's disgusting. So back to the Data Republican thread, because I didn't want to get too far off into the weeds with the Laura Loomer. There's so much here. The State Department severed its relationship with the Islamic Relief after anti-Semitism and its leaders were exposed on social media posts. One trustee praised Hamas as great men who responded to the divine and holy call of the Muslim Brotherhood. Remember, they're not supposed to be connected, but they constantly invoke the Muslim Brotherhood. Here is one article here. And then State Department, this is when Pompeo was in charge, cuts ties to Islamic charity over anti-Semitism. But what were the Islamic Relief? What were those Islamic Relief have ties to the State Department in the first place? Well, for one thing, Anwar Khan, the person from the beginning, the guy that we've showed you his picture several times, who's been involved in gathering all of this money through these charitable organizations, sat on the Advisory Committee on Voluntary Foreign Aid, ACVFA. The advisory board, which has a strong input on USAID dollars and where they
CIA.
go. There you go. This is,
and then you need to go back, and then she needs to go back a little bit further with this, or take this down another level, and then go look up those names and find out who those people are. If she hasn't done that already. There's a whole nother thread that I started going down, and it's pretty insane. USGLC is involved. Samantha Power. There you go.
All of these key people. We'll take a look at this real quick. This is actually attached to this main thread. ACVFA, where he was on the advisory board, then USAID, NED. So in 2022, USAID administrator Samantha Power resurrected an old, mostly forgotten advisory board, advisory committee on voluntary foreign aid. This was during the Biden administration. Brings America's top NGO business leaders and global development experts directly into USAID's decision making. S2, why in the name of all that is holy would we allow somebody who has known ties to terrorism be on an advisory board that directly... USAID was one of the largest
money launderers.
carve-out. Yeah, and well, yeah, I mean that's more of an actual. As you start to pull on these threads, you see why it was one of Trump's first targets, because this is where all of the money. This is where the money for RussiaGate came through. This is where the money from for all of these terrorist organizations under the guise of humanitarian aid. What in the world are we doing? Like this is insane. And when it all ties back, we have known people with known terrorist ties as a part of this.
It's like I've always said, John. There are people pulling strings behind the scenes that you or I have never heard of and never will hear of.
And then the most powerful people in the world.
Those are the people that have control of the governments around the world. It's not just the United States. It's everywhere.
Yep. Absolutely. So back to the main thread. But you see how this ties together. And that's a whole nother thread. Like I said, follow Data Republican. This is a treasure trove of information and receipts
And all of this
So
stuff, by the way, is available out on government spendingusa.gov. You can
yeah,
find it.
you
You
just
can
have to
find
be
all of
willing to
this
do
out
it.
there,
Yep. Yep.
and you'll be amazed when you see the maps that are drawn up. If you use Data Republican's tool that she developed, and you see all of the maps and all of the politicians that line up underneath all of these things when you start looking at the grants like National Endowment for Democracy, you have the
Yep.
International Republican Association, you have all of these organizations that are out there, and you see the names that pop up underneath them, it will blow your mind. And then you
Yep.
look at the direction all the money goes, and George Soros and Tides Foundation and Open Societies Foundation has had their hands in just about every single one.
Yes, Bill Gates, Soros, the
Well,
usual suspects.
Bill Gates, not so much. It's mostly
Well,
Soros and the Tides Foundation and Open Societies.
there are a few ties. If I can pull it back up, I know I was reading
Bill
earlier.
Gates is a useless. Bill Gates is a useless idiot. That's all he is.
Well, for sure, but his biggest thing is buying up land so that Americans can somehow have to rely on him for food at some point. But okay, back to the main thread. Islamic Relief and the State Department has a long history of working together. They have partnered on projects and fundraising efforts together. Here we go. Washington, D.C., November 10th, 2011. 750,000 people are on the brink of starvation and in death in the Horn of Africa. And more than half of Americans have not even heard of the problem. So Alexandria, Virginia, based Islamic Relief USA heeded an urgent call to action by U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, by supporting FWD, Famine War Drought Campaign, an initiative to educate Americans on the crisis, to encourage more people to donate and to provide relief. Okay.
Yeah, that's to sucker you out of even more of your money.
Correct.
Basically.
And I will also point out why do they target us? It's because Americans, because of our nature
Suckers.
and our principles, well, we are to a certain extent. We do believe in giving to those less fortunate. We're the most charitable nation on the face of the planet, and it's really not even close because of Christian organizations and stuff. Well, all of these things take advantage of that. And they use that as a leverage tool because a normal functioning human being like myself, S2, and all of you guys that are tuned in tonight, we see a child in need. We want to do something about it because we're good people, because we're people that actually have a heart that want to do something. The problem is what do you do when you're working in a 40-hour, 50-hour, 60, 70-hour work week? And you've got kids with soccer practice and extracurricular activities, and you got to be involved in your church, and you got to do all of this stuff. What do? Well, let's look for an organization to donate that can do the work for us, and we will financially support them. That is the game. That's what they want you to do.
Yeah, after 20 years of watching Sally Struthers strut her stuff on the Feed the Children thing, I kind of got wise to that a long time ago.
Yes. And this would be a piece of advice that I would give all of you guys. Don't donate to these large organizations. Find local people that you know the leadership is honest and above board. Donate in your communities. If you're going to donate, get involved in your communities. That's where you can have the most impact. Do not donate to these organizations that we don't know where all the tentacles go. Because the reality is they probably go into things that hate you.
Well, and you've got things like Charity Navigator and these other charity watch organizations that don't make it any easier either, because they don't dig into it. They just say, "Oh yeah, well their financials look good and all of this other stuff, so yeah, they're safe to donate to." And some of these NGOs are actually listed on those Charity Navigator sites that say, "Yeah, they're okay to donate to." No, they're not. They're trafficking children. You're on mute, John. John has lost his voice. Nope, nope, nope. Did you kick the plug on your audio set again? Sorry, we are having technical difficulties on John's side of the house. Nope, nope, nope. Still can't hear you. You can hear me though, right? Oh, wait. You're starting to come back. Oh, I heard something. Then it went away. I can hear you moving around.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, got you back.
Okay. I had to reroute something real quick. Sorry about that. Appears my microphone just decided to stop working for some reason.
Told you kicked the plug on your microphone.
No, I didn't even touch it. It's way up here. Go ahead and continue to talk, and I'm going to get this sorted out real quick. I apologize for that, guys. Technical difficulties.
Well, I'm going to go back to Heal Palestine because I got some interesting stuff here that even Laura Loomer and Data Republican hasn't said anything about either. There's also evidence to suggest that they're affiliated with Anera, American Near East Refugee Aid. A 2025 report by NGO Monitor alleged that Anera partnered with the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Social Development in Gaza to select beneficiaries for cash assistance programs that raise concerns about potential diversion of funds to Hamas. The report claimed that Anera's coordination with a ministry run by Ghazi Hamad, a U.S. designated terrorist, could facilitate terrorist financing. And let's see here. There's other things here that Anera partnerships in Gaza risks funds being diverted to Hamas. The allegations stem from NGO Monitor's analysis, and they've also saying that there's lacks conclusive evidence of direct funding to Hamas, but that's no mystery. Also, Anera has not been designated as an SDGT by the U.S. Treasury, which is a special designated government terrorist, is what they call them. And no criminal charges were ever filed. The biggest problem that the United States has in going after these is because of the complex evidentiary requirements that are needed to do this. So it causes a big problem in being able to go after these folks. The one thing that I would like to know is, why are these NGOs, after it's been uncovered and they're under investigation, why aren't they being why aren't their assets being frozen while they're under investigation? I have no answer for this.
That's crazy. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, really loud and clear.
Okay, good. All right. So, it's it's crazy. So, with Islamic Relief, a member of the Combined Federation campaign, which is FedGov Workplace Giving Service, CFC, gets up to $167 million on donations from federal employees per year. IRUSA is one of those beneficiaries.
Suckers.
Pretty insane. And we're running close on time, but there's so much of this to get to. I mean, we could do probably 3 hours on this and still not scratch the surface. But not only did Anwar Khan sit on the advisory board for USAID dollars, he also sat on the State Department's Religion and Foreign Policy Working Group. So you can see here, highlighted there for you. Again, receipts. Did not think that IRUSA is an isolated component with bad apples of IRW, being founded by the Muslim Brotherhood. Remember, from Upthread, IRUSA funnels its money directly to IRW. You cannot separate IRUSA from IRW. Germany, and this happened actually, Germany cut off its support for Islamic Relief after finding out German CEO of IR was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. There's an article showing that.
Imagine that.
So there you go. Congressional.
This is why we cannot allow these people to be in our government. Period.
Correct. Bring back the law that Obama took out that prevents these people from holding these offices. And you know, we've got to fix Washington D.C. and I'll get to that at the end because I've got some I've got some thoughts on this, and I'll run them by S2 and see what he thinks. A congressional hearing on July 11th, 2018, accused IRW's founder of using Islamic Relief money to fund Muslim Brotherhood terrorism in Egypt. So this was in 2018, so Trump's first term.
And that's why they threw him out of Egypt.
Yep. So the UAE designated Islamic Relief Worldwide as a terrorist group for its Muslim Brotherhood links. The Netherlands also cut off funding for the same reason. TikTok, United States. TikTok. When you have liberalized European countries that are honestly being overran by Islam, in the case of Germany, cutting off funding to them, it's got to be pretty bad. So it's not just us. This is not.
Well, they're getting their money through other means now. The Germany's just looking the other way. That was just virtue signaling.
So let's. That's actually you bring up a very good point there. Let's talk about the rinse and repeat of NGOs and charitable organizations. How they do this, to the best of your knowledge and wisdom of this, of how they do this. Because we talked about the Holy Land Foundation, and this guy was involved in it, and now he's involved in this for 20 years, and moving into these other charitable organizations, NGOs, whatever you want to call them, and they're two sides of the same coin. But let's talk about that, S2, about how they just continually outrun oversight.
Well, it's like I said in the beginning, you know, anybody can go out and set up an NGO. If you can write up you get yourself a catchy writer out there that can apply for grants. You can set up an LLC, and then all of a sudden you get somebody that knows how to write grants and gets money from the government, and they say they're setting up a charity, which would be a 501c3 that would say that we're going to save the children or we're going to feed the poor. Basically, I liken it to communism. It's a wealth transfer tactic, where your tax dollars are given to these people under supposed humanitarian pretenses, and they exploit those pretenses to get that money. And then once the garbage pile starts to smell, then they essentially shut down the NGO, and they've got another 5 or 10 waiting in the wings to receive that money. That before they shut down, they distribute that money to those other 5 or 10 NGOs, and now they're funded. And then there's another 5 or 10 that sprout off of each one of those, and it creates this an impossible, complicated web of finance and all of these other things that it's not impossible to track, but it's time consuming and very tedious to follow that money and find out where those grants came from in the first place. And a lot of the stuff that we found going back when we were doing research with child trafficking, we found out that a lot of this stuff was coming through HHS and the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So we had Mayorkas that was directly involved in it. We had the Jewish organization that I mentioned the other night. We had Catholic Charities that was involved, and numerous other NGOs, Services for Lutherans, something or other. You had all of these religious organizations. Well, certainly the religious organizations are good people. They're doing good work, right? Well,
Depends
it's
on who's
not
the head of those religious organizations and NGOs.
well, it's not the people at the bottom. The people at the
Correct.
bottom,
Yep.
I truly believe they think they're doing God's work. And they may be, because in order to make something true, you only have to make 10% of that truth be true. The rest of it can be false, and then everybody else believes it.
Yep.
And Marilyn, you're exactly right. So does Feed the Children.
Yep. So that's the interesting thing. It's the same thing that I do about, obviously I'm very close to some school teachers, and I don't think teachers are bad. I think teachers unions are bad. I think the national education government organizations are bad because they are corrupt, just like these NGOs. But I don't throw everybody into that lump. Just like in a religious organization, most of the people doing the groundwork that are actually doing the work, typically good people. But it's what happens to the money when it goes through those funnels.
The problem that you have with this whole thing is that the people that are on the ground that believe they're doing the good work, yes, they're doing good work, but when you try to tell them what's actually happening within their organization, and they refuse to listen to it, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yep. You're absolutely right. Okay, so we're going to try and finish this thread. Only a few more here. IRW is one of the NGOs working with UNRWA, performing direct assistance in Gaza. So Islamic Relief USA supports United Nations relief and work agencies efforts to help refugees. Funneling money.
United Nations.
Interestingly, IRW has contributed to UNRWA, not the other way around, like you would assume. This, despite being a recipient of United Nations dollars. They can collaborate with the UN in a variety of ways, including UNICEF,
which I mentioned,
and UNDP. Okay, so let's do the conclusion, and then we're going to wrap this thing up as much as we can. We may do more episodes on this stuff because it's deep and wide. I mean, like it just seems to never stop. So here is Data Republican's conclusion. Islamic Relief is not a fringe actor. Its U.S. arm, IRUSA, has set on a federal advisory boards at USAID and the State Department. And it is a recipient of CFC funds through federal workplace giving. The global parent, IRW, Islamic Relief Worldwide, has been founded by the Muslim Brotherhood leaders, banned and cut off by Israel, UAE, Germany, Netherlands, accused in Congress of channeling funds to Muslim Brotherhood-linked networks, yet still partnered with UN, UNICEF, UNDP, UNRWA, and a recipient of Western donor money. You cannot separate IRUSA from IRW, and the US dollars raised here are flowing directly into that global structure. To what extent has the Muslim Brotherhood penetrated our foreign policy?
100%.
I have no doubt. So,
and there were 3 other areas that she didn't mention that they've been banned in as well. They've been banned in Syria, they've been banned in Egypt, and they've been banned in Jordan.
This is nasty, and the swamp is real, guys. But the swamp is not just what we're talking about, taking our tax dollars and wasting them on stuff here. No, we are funding, really, honestly, evil actors around the world. Not necessarily directly, but through this money laundering scheme that was started to be exposed with the Doge boys early on this year, with all of the wasteful spending through USAID, and now we are finding even more and more ties through USAID. And when you look at what we started the program with on Sunday, and that picture, I don't have it readily available, and the picture of all of these prominent Democratic politicians, and I am not leaving out the Republicans at all, but primarily it is kind of interesting. The lobbying forces for the Islamic side seem to be trending Democrat, whereas the other side seems to be trending Republican. So what does this leave us with?
No, that's wrong. The
What?
Islamic side is trending communist.
Well,
Democrats are not all communists.
That's true. I would say most of the ones left in the Democratic Party are probably because a lot of those others have purged out. But yes, you're correct. But we could call that because of the ties and the way that they operate. You know, we showed that on the last episode as well. But I think that we need to really take stock in how we're going to fix this thing. So how I'm gonna pose a question to all of you guys out there watching us. How do we fix this thing? And I have a couple of points that I would like to make to maybe get this to where at least it's a little bit more manageable than what it is right now. But in the comments, I want you guys to put 3 things that you would do to fix this right now. Whether it be shutting down government organizations and all that kind of stuff. And there are consequences to that because they always tie this to stuff that is meaningful things. Like USAID funded a lot of this stuff. They also funded some other good things, and you have to pull those things out. But if you were president of the United States or all-powerful king of the United States, what would you do? S2, I'm going to ask you, what are 3 things that you would do? And then we'll let the audience throw in their comments on this as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your conflicted question.
Yes. Since I didn't have one, this is the conflicted question.
First thing that needs to happen is an entire vetting process. Anytime an NGO pops up and is asking for grants for money from the government, they and their founders need to be transparent. And they need to be vetted. They need to be vetted all the way back to where they came from. If they did not come from this country, no money for you. That's a period. We have to learn to start saying no.
Yeah.
If we continue to let these people have money and power, then they will just continue to take and take and take and take. And then we need to look at the ones that are in existence and the ones that are in existence that actually are not active. And we need to look at the ties between those, and we need to shut them down, revoke their 501c3 status, period. Those are 2 things. And the second thing is to cut off their source of revenue, which is children. This is all about children. And as time goes on, people will start to see that I am right, that it all ties back to the children. They want the children for whatever reason. All of these organizations, they want it for later influence. They want them for trafficking. They want them for their own personal pleasures. It all goes back to the children. It's one of the reasons why this was a spotlight subject for Trump in his first term. It's one of the reasons why it's a spotlight subject for Melania. They understand this. Everything boils back to it. If you look at what went on in Ukraine, you had the organ harvesting of children going on over there. You had the trafficking of children going on there. You had children that are disappearing from everywhere. Where are they going? This is all about children. Cut off their currency.
Yeah, agreed. I love this comment. We fix it by obeying God, defying government, and being joyful in God, having no fear. Amen. So a couple of practical things that I would throw out there. First of all, we need to decentralize the federal government. And I'm not talking about like just the idea of decentralization. I'm talking about physically decentralizing the government. We give Washington, D.C. back to, I think it's Maryland, and we force every single congressman and senator to do the business of the United States. All of our elected officials do it in the districts and areas in which they are elected. They have to answer to their constituents on a daily basis. No more of this going into the Washington bubble, where the lobbying firms build these giant buildings that they can have easy access and daily access. It makes it much harder for lobbying forces to get to these politicians to have these secret conversations because they're much more spread out. When they're centralized, you can go from office to office and do this. So it makes that a little bit more difficult. Secondly, term limits on every level of government, including government employees. You only get a certain amount of years. We're not giving, the government is not for you to have a retirement program. The government is for you to serve the country and serve the will of the people. So politicians, aides, everything. You have a maximum, and that can vary from 2 terms to 10 years or whatever, but no more of this lifelong government official crap. We've got to get this rot out of here.
Cut off the lifetime benefits while you're at it.
And cut off the lifetime benefits. You don't get health insurance for the rest of your life and a pension for just serving a couple of terms in Congress. You have to go back. You have to do the jobs that you were doing beforehand. So you better think about that. You're going to have to go back into everyday America when you're done. So this is all things that I think are practical on a fundamental level. I think that it was Anonymous Legion that said, see Constitution for, reference Constitution for all answers. 100%, brother. That is absolutely true. We need to get back to the founding of the country, what the original meaning of the Constitution was, become originalists. And the government is made to function in that, with that manner. The problem is the government has become so bloated and so corrupt that we don't even know what ends up. And when you continue to peel back the layers of this evil onion, you see more and more how much we are wasting. How much money have we sent to foreign actors who are doing horrible things to children and people and everything across the globe that we could have used to build this country, to invest in our own children, our own infrastructure. That's the kind of stuff that makes my blood boil. And I'm not an absolutist isolationist myself, but I think we probably need to trend a little bit more that way instead of getting involved in everything on the global stage. And lastly, return to our Christian principles of the founding. Return to God. Put prayer back in schools. Let's get this ship righted. And I am heartened to see a lot of younger men in this country are starting to turn back to God and get away from the lifestyles that can be so detrimental. That is amazing. There's a lot of trends in the positive on that, but we need to do that nationwide and return to the principles in which we were founded, which are built on biblical principles. So anyways, that's what I've got. I saw some great answers you guys gave. Yep, and I agree, Doherty. We would have a surplus if not for all the waste and theft. And that latter word is absolutely true. They have stolen this money from you, from me, and from our children and future generations in the name of enriching themselves and spreading bad things across the country.
Bruno stole my colloquialism.
Nice. That it takes a lot to get one over on S2. So well done, Bruno. Okay, so one last thing here, and this was from, pull this up here real quick. This was from Let me see here. Oh, I'm not there yet. Sorry. This was a post that was put in from one of our patrons, one of our insiders, and this is Dr. Malouf, who's another great follow on X. Iranian activist Sharifa Mohammadi has been sentenced to death by the Islamic regime for supporting women's and workers' rights. She is going to be hanged for the rebellion and corruption against the Islam and the state. Religion of peace, guys. Religion of peace.
Intolerance.
Nowhere close. Yep. So, anyways, we thank you guys for stopping by and joining us tonight on a very, very important topic, and one that is not lost on us. And it was Dale that posted that. So thank you, Dale. Always coming in strong. So if you guys are interested in further supporting this effort and all of the work that goes into it, a lot of us will still work full-time jobs and bring this stuff to you guys on a daily basis. So we thank you for the support that you show us. And if you guys like what we're doing, first off, hit that like button and subscribe to our social medias. And then also go over to Substack, sign up for that free account. Do that today. As soon as we're done here, you get that Saturday watch guide that will give you an outline of everything that we have done throughout the week. Also, don't forget our sponsors, CCW Safe. If you are in a situation where you think you might need self-defense coverage, they are one of the best out there. And they have a very unique system that puts you, the potential sufferer of a unjust system, in the forefront, and they leverage all of their abilities to come to your defense in the situation where you may have the worst day of your life in having to defend your life or your family's life. Also, Carnivalt for amazing freeze-dried, shelf-stable meat that you can cook and add to your preps. Amazing stuff. I am a big fan. Eat meat for 10% off. Use that code. And then if you are a police officer or you are connected to a police officer in some way, maybe you're married, maybe they're in your community, they go to church with you, tell them about Compliant Technologies. Jeff Nicholas just put out an email earlier today where a Navy SEAL went down in less than a second when these gloves were put on him, and this was a big dude too. So that was pretty impressive. So go check those out for police officers. It's a great tool for them to have that is better than a taser. I have seen too many tasers fail in videos, and police or innocent people end up shot, to trust them. But Compliant Technologies is the real deal. Okay, tomorrow we'll be back with another episode with Chris and the crew. The next installment of their series that they are doing. So stay tuned and tune in for that, 7 p.m. Eastern time, as always. We also like to thank you guys first and foremost for tuning in, showing your support. A lot of you guys have been here since I started here with Survival Dispatch. So thank you guys for your continued support. Thank you to all of our sponsors. You're the reason that we can put in the work and bring you guys truth on a daily basis. And we know we're over the target for sure, based on a lot of things going on. So,
yeah, like Blackhawks flying over my house again.
Right. You're right. Yep. So, all right. Well, I'm John. He's S2. We'll be back later on this week with another episode and maybe digging into some more of these financial records. Until then, be prepared, be smart. God bless America. Enjoy this video.
Hoorah.
Let's tell a story about one of the greatest psyops in history. The psyop that you deserve less and less every year, and that you should work harder and harder for less and less. The psyop that to be broke was the American way. The psyop that you should be lucky to pay your bills. The psyop that it's normal for prices to go up every year, forever. The psyop that it's normal to pay taxes. When you're born, death and taxes are the only certainty they would tell you. The PSYOP that you need to make $80,000 a year to take care of your family, then $100,000, and then $150,000. Now they tell you both you and your wife need to work to achieve financial freedom. So you hire the nannies, you hired the babysitters, you leave your community, you just don't have time for them anymore. Because you and your wife embarked on individual careers, these careers that took you away from your kids, your spouse, your home, your community, and they told you this was normal. It's totally normal to spend 2/3 of your time away from your family. It's normal to fight and get divorced, and it has nothing to do with the economic decisions and policies made by the government. None of it was normal. It was all nefarious, and it chipped away at what it meant to be an American. It chipped away at your self-esteem. It chipped away at your marriage, at your family, until you looked up and one day no one was married anymore. No one was succeeding unless they were heavily leveraged. One day you woke up and realized you don't recognize the world around you. Until Trump. President Trump came along and said, "This is your country, and that's your money." And he wouldn't back down. All the people that were destroying you came out and spoke against him. They went to great lengths to undermine his agenda. When President Trump hit his stride in 2019, they released a biological weapon that was the largest PSYOP in global history. COVID. They ran the scamdemic. They extorted trillions of dollars out of your economy. Then they stole your election overtly, hijacked your democracy, put up barbed wire fencing around your capital, and told you it was normal. During the next 4 years, they would unleash an invasion the likes of which no nation had ever seen. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of illegals poured in the United States of America and began gobbling up whatever remaining resources were in existence. You were deemed a domestic terrorist by those in power. They surveilled your phones, your computers. They surveilled your lives. But it wasn't enough to stop Donald Trump. When they couldn't undermine his campaign through the courts and lawfare, they eventually tried to kill him again and again and again. Until that fateful day in November, when President Trump and America reclaimed their sovereignty. With him, he brought the richest man on the planet, for free, named Elon Musk. They then began uncovering and publicizing all of fraud, theft, waste, and abuse of the American taxpayer. They have threatened him. They have threatened his family. Subversion is all they have left. Infiltration is all they have left. Their funding is drying up. This is your Liberation Day.